thanks Tim for the invitation to come here to London. And I'm afraid I'm not raising emerging themes in this session, but I'm just raising themes that are on the table already. And I would like to address the issue of themes through 5 slides, and each slide is devoted to one question. But the first question is, how OER-based are MOOCs? We all know what OER means, we all know what MOOCs means, but I would like to make an observation that in many cases MOOCs are not really open, are restrictedly open, and for example they're not open for institutions that are not involved in the MOOCs development. They're open for users only in a specific time frame. There's no real OER base for MOOCs, there's no open licensing, you cannot adapt the materials, you cannot compile them. The 4 R's, as we all know, are in many cases not there. I must say in many cases, not in all cases, of course. So that's an observation. As a consequence, the learners, the teachers, the institutions, the society, and governments do not have the full range of benefits of what could open deliver. And also, you could say that MOOCs is a side branch of the OER movement, and you could say that we're drifting away a little bit from the fundamental principles of open. So I'd like to call for MOOCs, please get more back on the OER track, because it's good for all of us, it's good for the learners, good for the teachers and so on, it's good for society, and please let's get back on the OER track regarding, of course, the learning materials. That's my first question. The second one is, how open are MOOCs to learners' needs? Certainly in the beginning, most of the MOOCs are really supply driven, although I must admit now with Sebastian Troon changing his mind, getting into corporate training, that is changing, and also I think Future Learn is very well aware of the need to also look into the demand side. But certainly most of the MOOCs are just supply driven, which places the teacher at the center. There's no freedom of entry time. In many cases you have to start at September 9 and you should finish at October the 10th, and if you want to start 2 months later, in many cases that's pretty impossible. There's no freedom of pace, so there's no self-paced opportunity in many cases. Again, it's not in all cases, but in many cases. And credentialing still is problematic, as we have heard already today. Consequences, there's a lack of flexibility. We all say that MOOCs are very flexible. There's still a lack of flexibility. We could improve, we could increase on flexibility. There's no perfect fit to what learners in their circumstances need. And coming from an open university in the Netherlands, which is quite similar to the OUK, we know very well what that means. So there's a call for more flexibility, even more flexibility and personalization in the content, and put the learner in the center. How good are MOOCs? Quality has been said today quite often is the major issue, I think, that we should look into. And if you look into the MOOCs, you see a wide variety in quality. And we all know that if you have an excellent research reputation as a university, that does not mean at all a guarantee for high quality learning materials. And certainly, I remember at the UNESCO conference in 2012, where the declaration was adopted on OER, Anwar Agrawal from MIT explaining what his MOOC was. And I was asking the question, what did you do to design that MOOC for self-directed learning? And he didn't understand the question. That tells you something. So just video recording what the professor is doing, and then of course there's additional interactivity, but there's no real design in many cases for self-directed learning. So there's an ever-increasing number of mediocre quality MOOCs with a pretty basic pedagogic model. I really liked the session before, which stresses the importance of pedagogy, good pedagogy into the MOOCs, and lacking a sound design. So please, better pedagogy, also specific in terms of design for self-directed learning, because that's what we need. And also, let's be more specific on quality assurance, for example, by introducing a MOOCs quality label. How receptive are MOOCs initiatives to diversity? We all know it started in the US and it's still dominated by the US, although now with Future Learn and with Myriad-Dax and with Diversity and with Fun in France and with Openvet, you see new initiatives coming within Europe, and I think that's very important to get a little bit away from the US dominance. But it's also a big dominance by the English language. Of course, it's not a problem for you. It's not a problem for the Commonwealth of Learning, but it's a problem for many other countries in Europe. There's many languages around here. And also, what I would like to say here, if you look into the global south, the developing world, there's a lot of, let's say, activity to try to sell our MOOCs to Africa and to Asia. There's not much reciprocity and symmetry in those interactions, and certainly for the University of London and also for the OUK and for other institutions that are working internationally, this is a very important remark. And as a consequence, we see there's a lack of cultural and language diversity. We're just not aware of it. And there's a tendency for getting into some kind of uniformity or sameness. So we're exporting products one-way direction, and some people, I don't like this word, but some people are talking about neo-imperialism. Again, we're doing it as we've done before. Now is education, and we should be really careful about that. So there's a call for recognition of the need for diversity rather than getting into uniformity, and there's a call for having models that are symmetrical for MOOCs development and collaboration with the developing world. And I know that, for example, Lausanne and also Edinburgh are aware of the need to get into collaboration rather than just export our products to those countries. So there's certainly good examples already, but the majority is not. Question number 5, what is driving the MOOCs initiatives? Of course, we all know that mostly they are driven by business and they are in the private domain. With a central platform, which seems to be very important, to deliver the MOOCs and also to collect the data for the learning analytics. As a consequence, you see that universities are giving away their courses and their control over learner data. And certainly in the continent in Europe, this is a very severe issue. And we have observed, I think, in the last year, what can happen with data that are being given away and that you don't control anymore. And it's also in a more centralized, business-driven environment. I don't want to say that this should not be done this way. I only want to call for alternatives. There may be other tracks towards quality education to reach out to many people in the public domain, driven by not the business drivers, but by serving society and the learners. And there, I think autonomy of universities is very important. You don't have to centralize everything. You can certainly work in a decentralized model. What happens is that there's an initiative that I'm leading, which is called Openvet, that was launched April last year together with the European Commission, and it has a lot of connection with the new program of the Commission, which is called Opening Up Education. So that's why it's called Openvet. It's really the first pan-European initiative, so it's not based in one country, not in the UK, not in Germany, not in France, not in Italy, not in Spain, but it is an initiative where open universities, mainly open universities, have come together and said, well, let's do it. We have been in this business for decades already, and we should really do something, and that is the origin of the Openvet initiative, as I see it. It is cherishing European values, equity, equality, and diversity. And as I said, it's really in the tradition of the open universities. There's 11 partners at the start, including the OUK. Of course, the OUK is very important for Future Learn, but they also decided to be on board in this initiative. And also, interestingly, France doesn't have an open university, but the French government of higher education, which is now the big initiator of FUN, is also involved. There's 12 languages, of course, and in the start we had 40 courses, and now we're running 200 MOOCs on this platform. There's 10 more members from the EDTU. EDTU is the European Association of Distance Teaching Universities, planning to join, and almost half of the courses you can do with a formal credit for which you have to pay, of course. There's a lot of interest in other parts of the world from open universities that are in Asia, in Africa, and let's face it, we think that 160,000 learners or participants in one course is a lot. If you add the number of participants, no, the number of students, I must say, of the Open University of China and the Indira Gandhi Open University in India, you're talking about 8 million students. Not participants, but students. So those are really big operations. So I think in Asia, they can learn us quite a lot about how a big operation should be run and what you should take care of. So there's possibilities to connect to Africa, to Asia and Latin America in this model, which is decentralized and certainly pushing forward a bit stronger the Open University mission and tradition. And I think that is about it. The final one is showing those pictures. So the first question I was asking was about OER. What does MOOC have to do with OER? The second one is about openness to the learner's needs. The third one is on the focus on quality. The fourth one is not so visible, is on diversity. And the fifth one is on autonomy and decentralizing rather than a central approach. So thank you very much for your attention.